Tell me, how many times have you heard the words to a song and later found out you were totally wrong? We've all been there, belting out nonsense at the top of our lungs, only to realize years later that we've been making fools of ourselves. So, let's take a trip down memory lane and explore some classic rock songs that had us all confused. Let's have a little fun and take a listen to those songs with the most misheard lyrics. We kick things off with a true rock legend, Jimi Hendrix, and his psychedelic masterpiece, Purple Haze. For years, many of us thought Jimmy was singing about kissing someone in the sky. While that might make for an interesting song, it's not quite what Hendrix had in mind. The actual lyrics are much more in line with the song's trippy vibe, referencing confusion and being in a daze. Here's a fun fact about Purple Haze. Hendrix wrote the song's opening riff in the dressing room of a London club just hours before a performance. Talk about last-minute inspiration. This impromptu creation went on to become one of the most recognizable guitar riffs in rock history. Next up, we have Nirvana's grunge anthem, Smells Like Teen Spirit. Oh boy, where do we even start with this one? The chorus of the song has probably been misinterpreted more times than there are flannel shirts in Seattle. People have come up with all sorts of wild interpretations, from references to mosquitoes to bizarre mentions of libidos. In reality, Kurt Cobain's lyrics are a bit more straightforward, albeit still pretty abstract. Did you know that the title Smells Like Teen Spirit came from a deodorant brand? Cobain's friend, Kathleen Hanna, spray-painted Kurt Smells Like Teen Spirit on his wall, referring to the deodorant worn by his then-girlfriend. Cobain, unaware of the brand, thought it was a revolutionary slogan and ran with it. Now, let's take a journey back to the 60s with Bob Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind.
The answer is blowing in the wind.
For the longest time, some folks thought Dylan was singing about ants being his friends. While Dylan has always had a knack for poetic and sometimes puzzling lyrics, this one would have been a bit too out there even for him. The actual line is much more philosophical, talking about answers blowing in the wind. This song was written in just 10 minutes while sitting at a cafe in Greenwich Village, New York City in 1962. Interestingly, Dylan once said he wrote it as a deliberate attempt to create an anthem, but he wasn't expecting it to become as influential as it did. All right, we've covered 3 iconic songs, and I'm sure many of you have your own stories of misheard lyrics. Why not share them in the comments below? Tell us about the most embarrassing lyric you've belted out incorrectly at a party or in the car. Don't be shy, we're all friends here, united in our musical misunderstandings. Moving on to the 80s, we have Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. Now, I don't know about you, but for years, I thought Annie Lennox was singing about cheese.
Sweet dreams are made of these.
Sweet dreams are made of cheese. Who am I to disagree? Well, the actual lyrics are much less dairy-focused, talking about traveling the world in the 7 seas. Here's an interesting tidbit. The iconic synth riff in Sweet Dreams was created by accident. Dave Stewart was playing around with a synthesizer when he accidentally dropped a drum machine on it, creating the now famous beat. Let's keep the 80s vibe going with Queen's stadium rocking anthem, We Will Rock You.
We will rock you.
Many people thought Freddie Mercury was singing about having mud on your face. Now, while that might make sense in the context of a rowdy rock concert, it's not quite right. The actual lyrics refer to a certain kind of disgrace on your face. Much more rock and roll, don't you think? Did you know that We Will Rock You was written with audience participation in mind? Brian May wanted to write a song that the audience could be part of without any special equipment, just their hands and feet. Mission accomplished, I'd say. Next on our list is Bon Jovi's Livin' on a Prayer. Oh, the number of times people have confidently sung, "It doesn't make a difference if we're naked or not." The actual lyrics are about making it or not, which fits much better with the song's theme of perseverance in tough times. Here's a bit of trivia for you. Livin' on a Prayer almost didn't make it onto the album. John Bon Jovi wasn't satisfied with the original recording and had to be convinced by the record company to give it another shot. Good thing he did, as it became one of their biggest hits. Rolling on with the Rolling Stones and Gimme Shelter. Many people thought Mick Jagger was singing about a kiss away. Now, while the Stones have their fair share of romantic tunes, this isn't one of them. The actual lyrics refer to being just a shot away, which fits the song's theme of seeking shelter from impending danger. Fun fact, the powerful female vocals you hear in Gimme Shelter belong to Mary Clayton. She was called in for a late-night recording session while pregnant and delivered such an intense performance that her voice cracked on one of the high notes. That imperfection was left in the final mix, adding to the raw emotion of the song. Sticking with the Rolling Stones, we have I Cant Get No Satisfaction. For years, people thought they heard a line about a girl reaction. Now, while the Stones certainly sang about their fair share of ladies, this particular lyric is a bit off. The actual words reference a girly action, which makes a bit more sense in the context of the song. We've covered some real classics here, and I'm sure many of you have memories attached to these songs. Why not share a story in the comments about a time when you realized you'd been singing the wrong lyrics? Or maybe tell us about a friend who still insists on singing the wrong words even after being corrected. Let's keep this musical conversation going. Now let's hop back to the 70s with Elton John's Tiny Dancer. This one's a real doozy. Tiny Dancer. For years, people thought Sir Elton was serenading actor Tony Danza, singing Hold Me Closer, Tony Danza. Now, while I'm sure Mr. Danza is flattered, that's not quite what Elton really said. The actual lyrics reference the song's title character, a ballet dancer. Here's something you might not know. Bernie Taupin, Elton's longtime lyricist, wrote Tiny Dancer about his first wife, Maxine Feebleman. She was a seamstress for Elton and the band, which explains the line about the seamstress for the band. Let's rock on with Neil Young's Rockin' in the Free World. Many folks thought Young was singing about kicking in the back door. The actual lyrics reference a different kind of defensive action, which fits better with the song's critical view of society. Did you know that Rockin' in the Free World was written in just one day? Young was sent to tour with his band Crazy Horse in the Soviet Union, but the tour was canceled. He wrote the song in response to this cancellation and the political climate of the time. Now, let's take it back to the beginning of rock and roll with the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand. I wanna hold your hand. For years, some people thought the Fab Four were singing about wanting to hold your ham. The actual lyrics are much simpler, just talking about holding a hand. Here's an interesting tidbit. I Want to Hold Your Hand was the Beatles' first #1 hit in America. It was also the first song they recorded using 4-track equipment, which allowed for a fuller, more complex sound. Moving on to the Material Girl herself, Madonna's Like a Virgin had its fair share of lyrical confusion. Some people thought they heard a line about being touched for the 31st time. The actual lyrics reference being touched for the very first time, which fits much better with the song's theme. All right, music lovers, we've covered some truly iconic songs here, spanning several decades of rock history. Why not share this video with a friend who you know has been singing the wrong lyrics all these years? Or better yet, challenge your friends to a game of guess the correct lyrics using these songs. Let's spread the joy and occasional embarrassment of musical misunderstandings. Now let's head back to the late 60s with Creedence Clearwater Revival's Bad Moon Rising.
There's a bad moon on the right.
This one's a classic case of mishearing. For years, people thought John Fogerty was helpfully pointing out that there's a bathroom on the right. The actual lyrics reference the song's ominous title, Warning of Trouble Ahead. Here's a fun fact. Despite its foreboding lyrics, Bad Moon Rising has been used in numerous films and TV shows, often in ironic or humorous contexts. It's appeared in everything from An American Werewolf in London to The Big Bang Theory. Let's take another trip with the Beatles. this time with Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Many people thought they heard a line about a girl with kaleidoscopes by. The actual lyrics refer to a girl with kaleidoscope eyes, which fits much better with the song's psychedelic imagery. Did you know that the title Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds was inspired by a drawing John Lennon's son Julian made of his classmate Lucy O'Donnell? Despite the popular belief that it was a reference to LSD, Lennon always maintained that the song's title came from this innocent source. And finally, let's wrap things up with ZZ Top's Sharp Dressed Man. This song has a line about clothing that's often misunderstood. People have come up with all sorts of interpretations, from specific brands to bizarre fashion choices. The actual lyrics are much more straightforward, simply describing the appeal of a well-dressed gentleman. Here's a bit of ZZ Top trivia for you. Despite their image as rugged rockers, the band members are known for their impeccable style off stage. In fact, Billy Gibbons is a noted collector of vintage guitars and cars. Well, folks, there you have it. 15 songs where we got the lyrics hilariously wrong. It's amazing how our minds can play tricks on us, especially when it comes to music. But you know what? Sometimes these misheard lyrics become part of the charm of the song. They're like inside jokes we share with millions of other fans, a reminder that music is as much about how we interpret it as it is about what the artist intended. So the next time you're at a concert or singing along in your car, don't be afraid to belt out those misheard lyrics. Who knows? Maybe you'll start a new tradition. And remember, in the immortal words of Jimi Hendrix, or at least what we thought were his words, "Excuse me while I kiss this guy." Rock on, music lovers, and keep those ears open. You never know what you might hear next.